Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of our series, our Second City Detroit interview series. I'm joined here with the one and only Ron West, who is an alum of Second City Detroit. He directed several shows from the group, including Greetings from Viagra Falls, Phantom Menace to Society, and Mayor Go Around. Ron West is also the author of and co-author of many plays and musicals, including The People versus Friar Laurence and Neil Simon's musical Fools. His comedy of errors at Shepperton will be revived next season at the Chicago Shakespeare, so definitely check that out. And he is married to Mrs. Playwright Catherine Butterfield, and he bats R&L and throws R as well. So really throwing it down on the diamond there.
That's
so
right.
Ron West, welcome. How are you, sir?
I am well. We played ball this morning. We lost, but we had fun.
Okay. Hey, that's the end of the day. You know, it's all we can do.
That's
so
right.
Thanks for joining me on this interview series. And I just want to kind of dive right in.
Okay.
So first question is, what do you typically tell people when they ask you about, directing at Second City Detroit or just Second City Detroit in general? What comes to mind?
Well, we had very talented people that were in the cast. And basically, Second City and whoever was running the building in Detroit basically left us alone for 6 or 8 weeks so we could create our show. And it was a very intimate experience and a very short schedule that we had to do it on. So it was very intense and I really enjoyed it. One time, and I can't remember if this was Phantom Menace or Mayor Go Round. I think it was Mayor Go Round. When I like to just see what the kids have got and take it from there. I think it was Mayor Go Round, and when I came in, they gave me a list of 185 things that they had improvised at one time or another. They were great librarians about their own work. And so I just went down the list. I said, show me 22, show me this one, show me that one. And I don't remember if we got through them all in the rehearsal process, but we had a fantastic show at the end because they had been such good curators of their own material.
That's awesome. It's awesome to hear some of that Detroit swagger, if you will.
It was a really good and creative time, and the space was good and conducive to comedy. Later, when it was a cabaret thing, it was very nice. And then later on, they changed it to I think what's called continental theater seating, and that was not a very good design nor a very good decision.
Okay. Now, your tenor directed several shows at Second City Detroit. Did you, starting out in improv, did you start out as a performer as well, or kind of work your way up the writing side and then discover directing later, or was directing the shows always sort of your focus early on?
I started out as a performer and then did some directing and then went back to performing and then did some more directing and went back and forth. So I still perform a little bit.
Okay, great. Were there any, did you ever give a chance to perform on the Second City Detroit stage?
Oh yeah. I mean, just once in a while, like when the thing that they like to do when our work was all done, they knew our work was all done when I would do the improv set with them. And we enjoyed that. So I only did that maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 times, something like that.
Okay, gotcha. And what does the maybe typical week look like in the life of a Second City, director, as far as like the prep work, what goes into like kind of the day-to-day, week-to-week sort of work of doing that,
Well, we rehearse in Detroit. We would rehearse Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and maybe Saturday and Sunday for a few hours during the day anyway. So we would get most of our work done on Tuesday because we usually didn't have a show that night. I think they only had shows Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There was so we would get most of the work done on Tuesday and getting ready to preview it on the weekends. But almost every day I would get there before the cast, and I would devise a running order, and I would go and put that running order in index cards. I'd put it out. I'd put it out on the piano, and every morning the kids knew the cards were going to be there, so they would go straight for the piano to look at the index cards, and they would all look at it and just kind of study it before we started. And I would say, can you do it? And there was never a time that anybody said, no, we can't do it. Every time I said, can you do it? They go, yes, we can do it. And then we would sit down and, make sure that we could do it sometimes that night. There was one Sunday when I think we were doing a best of show, and we had planned to rehearse that afternoon and do a show that night. And that afternoon, they said, somebody came in and said, well, the show's canceled. We didn't sell enough tickets. And everybody was cranky because they wanted to do the show. And I said, no, this is good, because we can use this time to work on this. We really need it. And we sat down with what we had at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And when we looked up, it was 8 o'clock at night. And we had just worked right through everything. But at the end of that day, we had the show. We had composed the whole thing or found out where we were going.
That's amazing. That's sort of like,
I don't know. I'm sure that our stage manager kept us abreast of union regulations too.
Yeah. I mean, that's definitely like one of those little nuggets. Once again, a lot of people think everything happens. A lot of people don't realize everything happens for a reason sometimes, and just the little tweaks and maybe the refinements that you didn't know you needed. Kind of that extra time could have made that probably made that show even better.
That extra time was a gift that we used, but I think what the myth is that somehow they improvise the scenes, they're all magically there, and then hilarity ensues for 6 months to follow. There's only been a couple of scenes that I ever was involved in that were automatic and were perfect the first time they were done. So it takes, you have to improvise something that's interesting. You have to do the chore of transcribing it, and then you have to boost it with writing and editing.
Well put. So tell me about maybe some of your best relationships, or at least like friendships formed while you were working at Second City Detroit, whether it was with the performers, other directors, stage crew.
The other directors that were around there when I was there, I didn't have that much intersection with, because it's only one director a show.
Yeah.
Our producer, Rico Bruce Wade, and Joe Janes were very good to us. Dave Rosowski, Michael Gelman, and Josh Funk also directed there. Directing is not an easy job, because you got to write some of the show too, and some directors aren't up to that. I really enjoyed working with Larry Joe Campbell, and we're still friends. Keegan Michael Key, he deserves all the success that he's having, because he's very talented and very funny. If you get to interview Keegan, he will make you feel like you are the funniest person in the world. So that's a real gift. And Naima Funk was first time I saw her on stage, I knew that this woman has got it. She she really knows what she's doing, and just, innately sort of. And Josh Funk has turned out to be a real good director of the LA training center out here.
Amazing. There's so many, like, just a whole
Yeah,
list.
that's just a few that I can think of. I'm good friends with Antoine. We talk on the phone occasionally, and we miss our late friend Eric Black, who was a very funny guy. Margaret Edwardowski and her husband John, I think they still live in Ferndale. I really enjoyed working with them. One person that kind of took an odd route to fame was Mark Evan Jackson, who was our musician for one show. And I really liked working with him because I would say something to the cast and then he would put it in words that they could understand. I was really grateful that he would translate for me. And well, then a couple of shows later, all of a sudden he was in the cast, which was very unusual. Then he moved to LA, and he was the stage manager out here for a little while. And then all of a sudden he's a character actor doing great work on various shows, really good work.
Yeah, you just never know. So many different people, so many different paths.
Yeah.
So what would you describe, I know Second City Detroit, they were based downtown Detroit for maybe about, the first 10, 11 years. And then they ended up moving to the suburbs of Novi, Michigan. So were you all still involved with Second City Detroit?
Yeah, I did one show in Novi, but I never saw it because while I was there, they couldn't finish the work on the space. And I couldn't stay any longer. So I think I shared directing credit with that with that show with somebody else. I can't remember who it was, because I said, here's everything I got. If you can't, I can't stay past this day, and it was too bad. They should have realized that if there's a construction project, that means that there's going to be delays. And I regret to say that in that particular part of the country, I think the delays are bigger. Yeah.
There's a saying in Michigan, they say there's two seasons in Michigan, winter and construction.
Right.
So yeah, that's unfortunate. Now, what would you say are maybe some of your, maybe looking back, maybe some of your proudest and maybe funnest moments, even though it may have been more brief at Second City Detroit, or some of like your best memories?
Some of the best scenes I've ever directed were at Second City Detroit. Okay. And a lot of it has to do with the willingness of the cast to, they do it, and then I say, well, that kind of works, but listen to this for a second. And then we work on it together. One of them was a scene that in the running order we called Master Showman. And Kif Vanden Heuvel, who's on Young Rock now, and Mary Beth Monroe did this ventriloquist bit where she sat on his lap like she was the dummy and he was the ventriloquist. It's kind of an old gag. And I'd seen a documentary about Buster Keaton. And the reason he was called Buster was because his family's vaudeville act was, when he was a child, they would throw him around the stage in a family argument scene. So I said to the guys one day, what if Mary Beth is the dummy? What if we treat her, like she's a thing and throw her around the stage? And we actually, two things. One is I got Kif and Kirk mixed up because I didn't know him that well. And I kept saying Kirk and they went with it, and Kif never said anything, but I got him mixed up. So Kirk ended up being the ventriloquist, and we did it as an intervention of friends who were trying to save their friend from an obsession with the ventriloquist dummy. And we actually figured out all the gags we could do before we wrote the dialogue. And we had all these crazy gags in it of this evil ventriloquist dummy. And it was a blast. And the first gag was Mary Beth figured out that she could curl up in a hockey bag and we could pull her out of it. So the first laugh in the scene was, they wrote me and they said, we had him the second she came out of the bag. So that was a really fun scene, and probably in a way, maybe the craziest, funniest one I ever did.
Man, it's quite a moment.
And you know what? There might not even be, I think somewhere in my garage I've got a DVD, or not a DVD, a VHS of it.
Ooh.
But there might not even be a DVD of it.
I'd love to see that one day. And it's just funny, like kind of the magic of theater, not just like improv comedies, that you never see the same performance twice.
That's
like
right.
Sometimes, unless you get it on tape to watch it later, it's like you had to be in that audience to see that moment. So
yeah, the videotape of theater performances it just doesn't do it justice.
Yeah, it just had to be there.
Yeah.
What were maybe some, difficult moments or maybe potential setbacks, kind of like going down this path of becoming a Second City director?
Well,
that journey.
There's always setbacks. There's always setbacks in everything.
Mm-hmm.
But basically, every group that I was with, the resilience of the cast, they had equity theater jobs in a place where, it wasn't always easy to get a theater job, and they were grateful for it, and they were good at what they were doing. I always had very good talent in Detroit. One time they were rehabbing the building downtown, and we had to have an opening night. So the whole building was a mess when people were coming in to see the show, and it couldn't have been any worse had it been planned that way. It was well beyond pardon our dust. It was a disaster area. At the same time, there was a lot of road construction around Detroit, and we did a pretty well received scene called Detour.
Mm-hmm.
But out in the lobby, that's what it looked like. It looked like the road construction. It was terrible. That was kind of a setback. There was, I don't know if this was the same opening night, but I think maybe it was different. I'm not positive. The house was being seated, and they were getting ready to start the show. And at the time, there were, I think there were 3 sections. I'm going to try and draw it here.
Ooh, a visual aid.
I'm going to use this. Yeah, we spare no expense. We spare no expense. Hang on a second. I don't know if you can see this or not, but there was like 3 triangles of audience looking at the stage, and then there was aisles. Well, we were getting ready to start the show. The house staff had seated this one and this one, and there was mostly empty seats here. And I was like, what's going on? Why is this seated this way? This is crazy. I never got a really good explanation about that.
Yeah, middle section just empty.
Yeah.
Well.
So there was one time, again, they were trying to. It was a nice building, and they just sometimes tried to do too many things. One time there was just on there was just noise outside from another event that the building was producing, and it was just destroying the show. I was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to us?
Yeah. The uncontrollables.
Well, no, I think it was controllable because it's
okay.
the same people that if it was the same building, why are you doing this to me in this building?
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's definitely, yeah.
It's a challenge. It's a challenge. That's all.
It's a challenge, and we get through it. So once again, tell us a little bit about, I know like since Second City Detroit, you moved on to work on other shows. You co-authored many plays and musicals. Tell me about some of those, including The People versus Friar, Laurence, and then
People versus Friar, Laurence is Romeo and Juliet from a different perspective. I wrote it with my friend Phil Swan, and we did that at Chicago Shakespeare, and also I did it in Lansing, Michigan. It was really fun to do at the Boar's Head, which I think is no longer there. And that was a blast. Keegan was in that, incidentally, and Nicole Parker from Mad TV.
Oh, I love it.
And the second year we did it, the lead Juliet was Christina Anthony from Blackish.
Okay.
Yeah, and she's having a good career out here now.
Okay.
And the last musical of ours that I did is Neil Simon's musical Fools, which is based on Simon's play, and we've had a lot of success with that one.
You say there's any? What are like maybe the biggest differences between maybe directing an improv show versus directing just sort of, I guess maybe directing a Second City show versus like the current shows you're writing and directing?
That's an excellent question. The principles are the same, but one thing, we have to take a lot more care with the music, because Phil and I have prepared all of that beforehand, and it takes a long time for the people to learn that music because there can be a lot of it. And then I don't know how many we've written now, but there's always a lot of music to learn. Whereas sometimes at a Second City show, I would sit down with the musician before the other kids would come in, and I said, what if this happens? And he and I would work something out. And then when the kids came in, we'd go, what about this? And then between the seven of us, we would, improve upon it and figure it out. But the big difference is mostly Phil and I are handing off the script to a group of cast members who aren't really improvisers.
Okay. Definitely has its pros and cons, either way.
Yeah, it does. Like for instance, when it's a big group, when it's a group effort, that feels fine. And when you see somebody executing, words that you've written, that also feels good.
Yin and the yang, if you will.
Yeah.
Now, tell us a little bit about maybe looking forward, or just kind of looking back. Like, what would you say were maybe some of the sketch, improv, directing greats or people that you learned from, as you went through like kind of your journey through improv directing?
Who I learned from? Well, Bernard Salins, and who's no longer with us, and John Michalski, who's no longer living, and Jeff Michalski, who lives down the street from me. And actually, one person I've never met that I learned a lot from, just from reading about her, is Elaine May. And let's see, my friend Mike Haggerty, who is on a show called Somebody Somewhere on HBO, and he just passed away. But one time he gave me this really good advice. Sometimes you just get a little bit of advice from somebody and you can ride that for a long time. One thing Mike said to me was, never tell the producer anything they don't need to know about. So like at one point in my career, I was always going to the producer and giving them all the details of what's going on. And then after a while, I was like, I'm insane. They don't want to know that. All they want to know is that it's going fine and that it's funny. And so after a while, I just stopped, unless I just didn't give them progress reports anymore, other than it's going fine, because it was just too much information.
I definitely, I could have a habit of that too. I think they have that saying, like, KISS, keep it simple, silly, or something like that.
Yeah.
And even for me,
I think it's KISS, keep it simple, stupid. KISS.
Yeah, something like that. And just even in little ways, because even if I'm working on a project or whatever it is, a gig, like sometimes I'll like mass text people an entire paragraph of what's going on versus just a few sentences here, and a few sentences there. Then they ask more, I'll give you a little bit more. But
whenever I see that email that's got so much in it, I'm just like, what are you doing? Make the decision and just give us just what we need to know.
I've been that guy.
Don't write that email and brainstorm. That's no good.
Yeah.
I guess another let's see, and other people that that influenced me were let's see, Don DiPolo and Michael Gelman, and all the people that I grew up with, that I was in a cast with, some of whom are very famous now.
Yeah. And that kind of piggyback off of one question, like, do you ever find people that may having trouble maybe comparing themselves to maybe where another Second City Detroit or Second City Chicago alum is, whether that's where they went writing, directing, or performing? You ever find yourself doing that? Or you ever find there were people?
Do I find myself comparing and despairing?
I guess, or just maybe like comparing, like, do you find that people do that, like in general?
Yes.
That happen?
Yes, they do. Probably not the healthiest thing to do, but yes, they do it.
Definitely. And then I guess as we wrap up here, could you tell us a little bit about maybe some upcoming projects you have coming up?
Well, I've got something that I'm really proud of that I'm doing right now. It's called This Week, and it's a live topical sketch comedy show. It is we write it on one day, rehearse it on the next, and do it that night. So it's a very, very short schedule, shorter than Saturday Night Live's. And we put on a really action-packed, laugh-packed show that is under an hour long. And we're really enjoying it. We've got some very, very good talent in it, and I enjoyed directing that one.
Okay, so that's it's gonna be on for a few nights.
Oh, no! It's going to be on at least. It's on every Thursday. It's a new show every Thursday, and we're going to do it. I'm going to do it at least until the midterm elections.
Okay, should be plenty of material as well.
Yeah.
All right, cool. So as we wrap up, Ron, it's been a great interview. I really appreciate everything.
I'm honored that you have asked me.
Yeah. And my one last question is, I guess, as far as your career, how would you want your legacy in your career, in your craft, to be remembered, like one day, as far as what you do, like in your craft? What do you want people to remember?
You know what? I just want to keep. You know what? I don't care about how people remember me. I just want them to hire me now. I don't care what they think of me when I'm gone.
Hire me now. Worry about the legacy later.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's not bad. I'm definitely going to take that. Producer, don't tell the producers everything.
No, they don't need to know. They don't need to know that you open in 3 weeks and you don't have enough material. They don't need to know that.
Right. Because then that once again, you say one thing, it might.
Then they'll try to help you and it's going to get worse.
Well, since you mentioned that, I didn't think about this. So we think about boom, 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 boom. Like, oh, crap.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, Ron, thank you. And once again, guys, those watching that will be watching, this is another one of our interview series from the Second City Detroit documentary. And we will catch you next time.
Thank you, Hayward.
All right.